Welcome back. The FBI and the Department of Justice are investigating how Jeffrey Epstein died this weekend while in a federal jail in Manhattan. Authorities tell NBC News that they still believe Epstein, a wealthy financier and accused sex trafficker, took his own life. But there are a lot of unanswered questions, including why guidelines that could have prevented Epstein's apparent suicide weren't followed. Among those demanding answers, Attorney General Bill Barr.
We are now learning of serious irregularities at this facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation. The FBI and the Office of Inspector General are doing just that. We will get to the bottom of what happened, and there will be accountability.
And those questions, combined with Epstein's wealth and powerful connections, are leading to a flurry of online conspiracy theories. The president promoted one of those baseless conspiracies in a retweet this weekend. For more, I'm joined by Tom Winter, NBC News investigations correspondent, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst. Tom, let me start with you. The Trump retweet, of course, talked about Bill Clinton, who, again, conspiracy theory, zero evidence that anything like that was involved. I liked Rudy Giuliani's tweet. The conspiracy theories concerning the Epstein death are multiplying. The facts seem unbelievable, but it is best to wait for some key facts, like the findings of the autopsy. Withholding judgment is the wisest course to follow. When Rudy Giuliani is telling you to cool it on the conspiracy theories, I think everybody should cool it on the conspiracy theories. What's the latest on what we actually know happened here?
Well, as I like to say, a conspiracy theory without facts is a fairy tale. So we'll move from beyond that to the actual facts of the case, Casey, as you requested. So the latest bit of information here, and this coming to us within the last hour or so, is that the FBI is currently in the process of executing a court-authorized search warrant. This is part of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and a task force they have that is looking into Jeffrey Epstein and this broader conspiracy. They're at his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands right now. So they're in the process of executing that search warrant. As far as Epstein's death, what we know is that this federal investigation, the FBI investigation, out of an abundance of caution into this apparent or presumed suicide continues. Still no indication that there's any foul play here at all. Still no indication that this is anything other than a suicide. But, Casey, and with something with this much of a high profile, we've been talking about it all day. I know that you discussed it on your program last night. When you have a case like this, I think everybody involved really wants to take an extra moment, an extra pause to make sure every single little detail of this is accurately recorded, is accurately investigated. So the medical examiner here in New York City going to take a little bit more time, going to, perhaps they find something that they can ask law enforcement about or to investigate just to double check something. On the other hand, the federal investigation into this might help further inform the medical examiner and assist with their findings. So this is something that's pretty typical, and it is not surprising that it's going to take a few more days, maybe even a couple of weeks, just to get this kind of locked in and get it accurate and precise.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I totally understand that. But Glenn Kirshner, what I don't understand is how do we get to the rush of saying already that this was a suicide right out of the gate, immediately, just apparently potentially moments, certainly not that long amount of time before Jeffrey Epstein was found dead, were we hearing from sources that, hey, this was presumed to be a suicide. That struck me as something that normally law enforcement sources are more careful about describing how these things happen. How do you explain how quickly that unfolded?
That was yet another misstep, whether intentional or unintentional, by Attorney General Bill Barr, Casey. And we've seen him do this before. We saw him do it with the Mueller report. He had it a matter of days, announced no collusion, no obstruction, basically full exoneration. And then we learned that that was not the case, that was untrue. And here we go again with Attorney General Barr. I mean, Epstein's body is barely cool, and he's standing up in front of the camera saying this is an apparent suicide. Today he goes on camera and says these failures by the MCC are abhorrent and there will be accountability. You know, none of that should be said by an attorney general at this stage. The only thing he should have said, and what an attorney general ordinarily would say, is Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. Pending an autopsy and a complete, thorough investigation, we have no further comment. But this is Bill Barr, for whatever reason, wanting to get the public narrative out before the investigation has even commenced. And I am not going to feed into conspiracy theories, but that is at a minimum problematic. It should not go on. We have to wait for the autopsy results. And I will tell you, Casey, that an autopsy itself tells us something, but it doesn't tell us everything. The medical examiner will want to hear about the other information that was gathered as a result of an investigation with feet on the scene at the MCC.
Tom Winter, so what unfolds from here? Obviously, you mentioned that they are currently looking at his house on his private island. Right. I heard you mentioning earlier today that there was a possibility that his lawyers could actually sue MCC. Mm-hmm. How do you see these screws turning?
Well, there's a number of different things that are going to happen going forward. First off, let's look at the criminal side. As you heard from the U.S. Attorney here in New York over the weekend on Saturday afternoon in his statement, the conspiracy component of this, that investigation moves forward. They're asking for any additional victims who have not yet come forward to continue to come forward. They're going to look into see whether or not there are any other co-conspirators. We've talked here today about some other individuals that were close to Jeffrey Epstein, some information that came out in papers on Friday involving one of his former kind of top associates in Ghislaine Maxwell, who's not been charged with anything. But there's certainly some information in those documents that have proven true, would be problematic for her from a criminal standpoint. There would have to be, of course, a nexus to New York here. This can't just all be Florida, because that's where the U.S. Attorney's Office is that's prosecuting it. On the civil side, there's two things at play. One, ongoing lawsuits that may involve Jeffrey Epstein and ongoing arrangements and agreements in settlements. Many of those settlements, we don't have the terms or the know what has been settled as far as a monetary arrangement, if there is any. So the estate will now have to execute that. In addition to that, it is possible the estate could sue MCC if it was found out that they didn't do, and the Attorney General has already said this, that there were steps that were missed and that there were some errors that were made, and we know that from our own reporting. So kind of two prongs to this, Casey, that we'll have to watch going forward.
For sure. Let's work ahead of you, Tom Winter, Glenn Kirshner. Thank you both very much for your insights on this.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.